So I know what you're probably thinking. Oh my lord, what a horrible thing to witness as a child. Yet, I do not remember it being that way. It is not like I ended up actually seeing my father shot. There was no loud screams, no blood against the wall, just that big boom. I was more scared of being caught disobeying my mama, you know, by being out of the bed and all, than I was of that gunshot. I think those listening to this story have to remember this is Georgia, and guns are everywhere. They were not something to be feared, just respected. It seems as if after the gunfire, my father hightailed it out of my mama's house. I was more scared of the tall men in dark uniforms and shiny badges. I could hear them talking to my neighbor and my mama at the same time. Now that made it really hard to eavesdrop. It was not long before I was asked to come into the living room and talk to those big men. Their flashy lights were still on, and it could be seen circling on the walls as it snuck through our thin beige curtains. I tried not to stare at them, but they were hypnotic. It was not hard talking to the policeman. I got to be up way past my bedtime. I just told him what I saw, that Daddy and that woman were hitting on my mama and trying to take Junior. What was more interesting to the police is that my daddy did not report the shooting. Looking back now, it was probably because he knew he was wrong. It could not have had anything to do with the fact my mama shot him between the legs and only hit one of his testicles. Come to think of it, my daddy has never mentioned that night. Well, not much else is to be remembered of Old Cherry Street. Just one Halloween I could not forget. I wanted to be Superman, and Mama said I could not. But I refused to be anyone else, so she let me wear the plastic Superman costume. All the neighbors said I was cute, that I was Supergirl. This was before they made movies of such things. My brother was bigger now, and he could walk. Not very good, mind you, but I remember him being the green guy from Star Wars. It was perfect. He was no bigger than a booger anyway. Speaking of Halloween, it was a sensitive topic back in those days. A time where it was becoming popular to celebrate and dress up to get free candy. Yet, this is the South, and the church made it their mission to let the good folk know that anyone who celebrates Halloween are misguided children of Satan. Now, I don't know much about those other religions, but I do know if you were not a Southern Baptist, you were going to hell. Don't even argue it. It's just the devil talking anyway. I hear that some people think if you have seen or believe in ghosts, you're crazy. Even when some religions teach that we have a soul, they teach you that you're not supposed to see them. And the people that do see them are possessed by demons. Or even worse, the devil. But this is a touchy subject, because the South is home to many ghost sightings, with a deep history of people seeing souls lost at war, victims of racial crimes and such. With things like voodoo magic and Native American presence still strong, you had to have respect for the spirit world. My daddy's mama was Cherokee, but she did not dress like the people we saw in the picture books of the first Thanksgiving at school. So, of course, to us, she was just Granny. It makes sense now where Daddy got his dark skin and why he tanned so easy. Granny had jet black hair, and could outdrink any of the men in Daddy's family. It must have been their favorite thing to do, because they did it all the time. I remembered she always had a can in arm's reach, and she was always thirsty. One day, after playing with my cousins, I came running inside. As thirsty as I was, her can was closer than that fridge, and I found out that day it was not Coca-Cola. She had laughed when she saw I had made a face of someone who had sucked on the wrong end of a toad. This was not the only special person in my family. My mama once showed me a picture of her grandmother. It was her daddy's mama, and she looked like an Indian too. She was wearing Indian pants and moccasins. I noticed right away, 'cause girls were not supposed to wear pants, especially in those days. She had a rifle in her arms and was standing on the deer she just killed. Mama said she was Creole. I guess that was some kind of Indian tribe far away. Mama's picture was an old black and white picture, and it was not displayed in a frame like the other photos to be shown off. Mama kept it in a secret hiding place. She said that was because it was special and she did not want anything to happen to it. Then made me promise to never tell anybody about her special picture. Now this one day, not too long after the time Mama shot Daddy, I remember being in the car, riding down past the small town shopping centers of Duluth, Georgia. Then things stopped being so familiar. We started to pass through Swanee, Georgia. I always liked to say the name every time I saw the sign. Suwanee. My mama looked like she was on a mission. I do not know why this time was any different. She was always deep in thought. But it got to a point I did what most kids do and started asking why. Like, for example, Mama, why are there no more stores on this road? Why are there so many trees? Why are we going this way? When are we going to eat? Then she started to talk to me. She said, "Well, I am looking for someone." I replied, "Someone like your best friend?" I saw her hand gripping the hard plastic of the steering wheel, her chin just over it, and face close enough to the windshield her breath could be seen. So I continued, "Who you looking for, Mama?" She said, "I am looking for an old lady my mama used to go to when I was your age, but I do not think she lives out here no more." Now I was interested. An old lady. "Like Granny?" I said. "No, much older than Granny Bug," she replied. Bug was my nickname. I was never addressed by my birth name unless in school or in trouble, and that was rare. Now I started to lean up on the dashboard. This was before the time we had to wear our seatbelts. I remember seeing a long dirt road and tall Georgia pine trees that touched the sun. No houses and no old ladies. Mama was driving so slow I think I could have walked faster. She looked as if she was half in this world and half somewhere else. If there was a look people gave when trapped in a time warp of a memory, then she wore it on her face perfectly. She began to stop and then sat back. She turned to me and said, "This old lady my mama used to see when I was your age. She would give my mama advice. She lived in a little shack. It was no bigger than our living room. She had a small fire and a pot hanging over it. She used to tell the future. She told my mama things that came true, and she told me things that came true." Mom relaxed her head against the seat again and closed her eyes, then said, "I don't know what I was thinking. She was so old back then. She has to be dead. I bet they tore down her house or it fell in." I said, "Mama, are you sure it's on this road? Maybe we should go further." Mama just looked at me and said, "Okay, but then we are turning around." We went a ways, then another small road appeared. Mom stopped, pausing to consider, then making that unforgettable left turn. The road much bumpier and not as even. I said, "Mama, did you go down this road too?" She said, "Bug, I think we did." Then a few 100 feet later, it appeared. A small, old shack. No cars. It looked abandoned. The windows were so dirty you could not see out of them. We both stared. I remember thinking no one could live in this, and I was scared now. Mom said out loud, "There is no way she is still alive." There happened to be some smoke coming up from the chimney. Mama said, "Let's go, knock, see if this lady still lives here. If not, maybe they'll know what happened to her. I remember the small house. Walking closer to it made me seem larger than life, as if it was going to swallow me whole. I felt the gravel wobble under my feet. I looked back at Mama's Mustang and thought of it as the getaway car. Then I bumped into Mama. Looking up, she raised her eyebrow and said, "Your best behavior. You understand me?" "Yes, ma'am," I replied. Mama knocked on the door. I remember wanting to say, "She's dead. Let's leave." She waited. I waited. It felt like forever. Now I had to pee, so my hand went between my legs. The doorknob makes a loud pop and creaked as it turned slowly, as if I could ever forget. Hell, I was only eye level to the doorknob at the time. Then there she was, a tall figure in dark clothing. Well, not really tall. She was shorter than my mama, and my mama was only 5'2". I could not make out how much of her clothing was a dress and how much was a cloak. I remember I could not make out the style of her hair. All I remember is that it was black, and my mama introduced herself in the ever apologetic southern manner that is considered appropriate when dropping in on someone unexpectedly. Then the old lady interrupts. "Mo hasn't wa woo long time now. Koneme teye," or something like that. This was some kind of southern slang I remembered hearing when she would speak to her daddy on the phone. Mama answered without hesitation, "You remember me?" The old lady spoke with cognitive quickness, not normal for a woman of her age. "Yes, and your mother," she replied. Then she turns and looks at me while speaking to my mother. "This is the child?" I stood while her eyes inspected me. I was raised children are to be seen and not heard. So far, I had yet to be invited to the conversation. My mother answers, "Yes, it is." Then the old lady motions us to enter, at which obedience overruled my fear.